Because we're from Sweden, nature holds a special place in our hearts. It's part of who we are and how we live. It's where we go to re-energize and reconnect. Nature inspires us to create the beauty products we love. But nature is precious, so we need to protect it. We want future generations to enjoy it as much as we do before it's too late.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Planet Outlook. We have a very special guest joining us from Sweden. She is Antonia Simon Stenberg, Vice President of Sustainability and Quality Management at Oriflame, which most of you know is a giant when it comes to beauty and personal care products. Thank you so much, Antonia, for your time and joining us on Planet Outlook.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
So let me start with this phrase, sustainable development. So sustainability, the word has been around for quite some time in the environment sector. But while there are some positive steps, there are also, it has remained much of a buzzword kind of thing. But Oriflame takes great care and great pride in sustainability of their beauty products and the entire range of products, if I can say. So tell us about the Oriflame's sustainability story a bit.
Well, first of all, I'm very lucky to be working with a company who really wants to do this properly. I am a biologist, ecotoxicologist by training and did my master's in environmental management and policy. And my entire ambition has been to work towards driving environmental and broader range of sustainability issues in my career. So working with a company that really has the same ambition and intent is wonderful from a personal point of view. And I think it started by the founders, the two Swedish brothers and their friend who started the company almost 55 years ago now. And they grew up in Stockholm, in the rural or outside the main Stockholm, wonderful green, lush area. And as part of their purpose when starting this company, they said two things that are very relevant for this discussion. First of all, they said, we want to be a company that respects the environment, and we want to be a company that acts as a good corporate citizen. And saying that 50 years ago, that was quite unusual. And I think that kind of philosophy has come with the company and grown throughout the company, and is now also still there with the founders and owners. Alexander Vjoknek, who's now the chairman of the company, son of one of the founders, used to run actually an environmental management consultancy prior to taking over the role as chairman of the company. So I think it goes quite deep. And my personal approach joining this company, and how do we then do, what is it we as a company should be doing with regards to these issues, is obviously we want to do two things. We want to, through our beauty products and our business opportunity, bring as much value to our consumers and our brand partners as we can. So we want to have, people should feel great, look great, but also have an opportunity to fulfill their dreams. That's the core. But we don't want to do that in a way that somehow impacts negatively on the environment or the people who work in the supply chain of our products, for example. So my job is, how do we make sure that we maximize this positive output that we have as a company whilst minimizing any negative output? And with that second bit, how are we impacting the world around us? That's where it starts for me. Understanding as a company, not just my office, but everything we do, from the raw materials we source to where we produce to how we ship our products and how the products are used. How are we impacting the world around us, and how can we make sure that we take steps to do it better? And I think that's the kind of founding philosophy for how we've chosen to prioritize and where we've chosen to act when it comes to sustainability.
You talked about raw materials just now.
Yes,
I'm looking at a range of beauty products behind you.
yes.
You are wearing a lovely shade of pink. So, as a raw material, tell me, palm oil is a very important ingredient in lipsticks, in all kinds of products, even in food. It's a necessity all around this palm oil kind of thing. And we have seen by to grow palm oil how rainforest has been kind of slaughtered, kind of thing.
Mhm.
How challenging it is for you to source palm oil, and what do you feel about palm oil as a raw material? Do we have any alternative also?
Mm. Well, palm oil, we don't necessarily use palm oil directly as you would for perhaps in cooking, but palm oil is used in certain raw materials as uh, incoming material, a derivative to make numerous derivatives that are made used in the cosmetics products. Um, and it is a very challenging material because sourced wrongly, it is having enormous negative impact on the world around us. So we've had many discussions on this topic. What should we do? And we've been working with many non-governmental organizations and, listening to many experts to say, what should we do better? How can we change this? What should we be doing as a company? Should we move to fossil oils? No, that's probably not a good solution. Should we move to other natural oils like coconut oil, like sunflower seed oil, and so on? And in discussions with these experts, which we've been doing for 10 years now, more than 10 years since we joined the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil 10 years ago, the conclusion is that sourced correctly, we can, to a relatively large extent, limit the negative impact from sourcing palm oil and palm oil derivatives. And so therefore, since 2010, we have been buying RSPO credits. We joined the RSPO and we've been buying RSPO green palm credits for 100% of the palm oil we procure, which means that the money we pay goes only to palm oil producers that are not cutting down rainforests, that are not exploiting the local communities, but that there is a structure in place for sourcing palm oil then from those facilities which are doing and growing and harvesting palm oil in a responsible way. So those are the partners we work with. Now there's a next level on this, which we're working with as well, which is rather than working on this kind of system through the RSPO, can we actually source palm oil directly? But because we buy from our suppliers, who in turn buy from our suppliers, this is difficult. But we are now starting to move in the direction of a more physical segregated supply chain. And we're currently buying mass balance for 76% of our total supply of palm oil. So I think my message is it's a very tricky area. If you're going to use palm oil, you've got to make sure that you source it from responsible sources, which we do. You've got to be speaking to the experts. You've got to be working with the NGOs, which we do. But nothing is perfect. And neither are the alternatives. I think most of the other natural oils are they are not as efficient as palm oil, therefore not used to the same extent, and therefore not as criticized as palm oil. But many of the concerns related to palm oil also exist in alternatives. So there is no panacea just moving away from palm oil. So working with it in a structured, scientifically based, credible way with good partners is our approach to managing it. And also questioning, when do we need to use these types of oils? So acting on both of those. So we were the first company in the world to actually have a shower gel that was certified by the RSPO, many, many years ago. And we have been working with them for a long time. So I'm quite proud with our work within this area, but there's always much more to do, as in all areas within sustainability, to be fair.
So we also live in an era, in a very kind of interesting era where climate change is really on our face, kind of. And I was quite surprised to read that Oriflame has cut down its carbon emission by 48%. No, that's a huge number. How have you done it?
Sorry, what was the question?
You have cut down on carbon emissions by 48%.
Yes.
That's a huge number. How have you done it? Please tell us the
Uh,
secret.
well, I work, I think, is the secret, as in all secrets. It's about dedication and work. So there is no secret. But we've had focus on it. Again, climate change is definitely one of the biggest threats to humanity at the moment. And again, joining this company, this is one of the things we recognize. When you develop and ship products around the world, you emit CO2 emissions. How can we change that? What can we do to make it better? And as you said, we've actually managed to reduce in absolute numbers over 10 years now, almost halve our emissions. And that is prior to Corona, because people might be saying, oh, it's just because of Corona and there's no distribution and travel. No, these numbers are for 2019, so they're prior to Corona. So they're likely to be improved, but possibly only temporarily so for 2020. But what we've done is to say, okay, where is our impact coming from? Well, to a certain extent, it is coming from the electricity that we generate in our offices, in our manufacturing facilities, and so on. So how do we make sure that we only buy renewable electricity? So we're sourcing 100% renewable electricity in all our sites. As a company as a whole, all electricity we buy is renewable. So that means it comes from solar power, it comes from wind power, it comes from some hydropower, and none of it is coming from fossil fuels. So that's obviously a big step. Then you've got to actually look at how are you using energy. So, we are using energy in our production site. Can we become more efficient? Do we have processes in place that are inefficient, or machines that are inefficient? Or are we inefficient in our distribution? Can we pack our trucks in a smarter way so we can ship more product with one truckload of distribution? Can we position our warehouses and our logistics closer to the end consumer so that we don't have to ship in unnecessary directions? So we have actually been taking a full grip on the totality of our emissions and say, can we stop them? Can we reduce them? Can we change them for renewables? In basically everything we do. So we've reduced them by half, I would say 48%. And then what we've done in addition to that is say, anything we cannot reduce, we will compensate for. So the remaining 52% of all our emissions, including our travel, business travel, or our brand partners when they travel to our conferences, etc., all of those emissions that have not been reduced have been compensated for through various programs such as tree planting programs, tree preservation programs in many of our main markets.
Yeah, I'll come to the tree part. I'm just saying as a global, so you have a massive footprint across the world.
Yes.
How do you track that? Yeah, these emissions that you're reducing emissions constantly. Do
Yes.
you have a team which kind of calculates your kind of carbon footprint on a monthly or quarterly basis?
I have a small but very efficient team that does that. Yes.
Okay.
So
Also,
absolutely, we have this is something we track in a very careful way. And to be fair, the next level up where we're going from now is, you might be aware of the science-based targets.
yeah.
So we're saying, okay, this is what we've achieved in this decade. What will we be achieving in the next decade? So we are doing what is referred to as a scope 3 assessment, because to date, what we're doing is we've reduced emissions for everything we control. But we have not reduced the emissions, for example, for how the raw material is sourced,
Okay.
or for how the energy used in the shower when somebody's using some of our shower gels. So now we're saying, how can we actually track all of that? So we're looking now at doing a scope 3 assessment, it's referred to actually map all our emissions, way down the supply chain, and then to set targets that are in line with the global targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So with the science on that, and that's why they're called science-based targets. So we're in that process right now. And the team that's tracking it, that data is then we work cooperating with one of the global big auditing firms to actually verify the data as well.
I also saw that you have cut down on your water usage, you recycling a lot of water. Water is also a key environmental issue these days. So tell us a
Absolutely.
bit on that.
Hmm?
How have you done that?
So when, again, coming back to how we look at the world around us, how do we impact water as a company? And it's mainly in two ways. First of all, we use water in our products. So we have water in our manufacturing facilities that is used in our products. And therefore we have to be super efficient in how we use water in our products. So we're looking at that. Can we make our products more concentrated, for example? Can we even have certain waterless products? But also in our day-to-day work in our manufacturing facilities, can we reduce the amount of water, reduce any risk for spillage, and just be super efficient in how we use that? And by working in our manufacturing facilities, we've managed to reduce water by 18% over the past 5-year period, I believe it is. Then, however, we also impact water. If you imagine that you buy a shower gel or a shampoo from us and you take a shower, that shower gel will go straight down into the drain. And in many countries, there are good wastewater treatment facilities and it's nothing you have to worry about. But in many countries, wastewater treatment facilities are not as built out as would be ideal. And therefore we say, well, if we put it in our shampoo or in our shower gel and the shower gel goes down the drain, where does that go? Does it go into the groundwater or into a local stream or river? If that is the case, we need to make sure that the ingredients in that shower gel are actually biodegradable. So they will not have a negative impact going down the drain. So we're working very strongly with developing rinse-off products that are biodegradable. And right now, all new personal care products that we're doing, rinse-offs are biodegradable.
So there is no microplastics in your shower gels and other.
No, there's no microplastics in our products. So that's we have a wonderful director in our R&D facility working with actually sustainability in our formulations. And she was on this topic a very long time ago. And thanks to her, we were very early in removing any microplastics. So also good to have good people in the team.
But tell me why is it microplastics necessary in it's been a talking point and in news for a long time. So why is it there? First of all, you need to have microplastics in some products.
Well, you don't. I think there are certain products where you want to have, for example, a scrub effect. Okay. So, maybe a scrub cream that will help exfoliate your skin. And you can do that in various ways. But if you don't really think about the implications of what it is you're doing, one of the easiest ways is to put little plastic beads in there because they will do that in a nice way. You can shape the beads exactly the way you want and it's very efficient and good. However, if you start thinking that actually these might be going down the drain somewhere and into a local stream, it doesn't make sense anymore. What can we do instead? So we're using natural exfoliants such as, almond shells or various types of nuts and natural raw materials that to be used instead, which is working just as well from a consumer point of view. You get just as lovely skin without having any of the negative impact. And to make a point there, this is something I believe in very strongly. We're a beauty company. People want to feel gorgeous when they buy our products. They don't want to buy a product just because it's good for the planet. It's also got to make them feel wonderful about themselves. So there's no point in selling products that are not good for the people if they're only good for the planet. But how do we make the products good for both our consumers and for the world around them? That's the kind of key philosophy, or one of my key philosophies. You
were mentioning your tree plantation program. Oriflame is a huge kind of afforestation program. Tell us that story.
Well, again, coming back to this is a project we're doing for two reasons. First of all, as we were talking about it again, how do we make sure that as a company, we don't emit as a net contributor CO2 emissions? Well, we've reduced half of them, but we still have half of them left. how can we capture those? And therefore, we're working with organizations to invest in tree preservation and tree planting, looking at actually capturing CO2 emissions to compensate for that remaining 50%, or 52%, which we're still emitting. So that's one of the key reasons we're doing it. Then there's another key reason, which is that if we look at our raw materials in general and what we buy in, our number one raw material is paper. We use paper in our cardboard packaging. We use paper in our catalogs. Even though that is reducing and it will continue to reduce, we still use a lot of paper. So how do we make paper, and focusing on the forest that paper comes from is a key priority. So again, looking at how do we reduce our impact, we're doing that by only sourcing sustainable paper from sustainable forests and sources, both for our packaging materials and for our catalogs. And here we're cooperating with various organizations. We're cooperating with the Rainforest Alliance. We're cooperating with FSC to make sure that basically all the paper we have is either from recycled sources, so we're reusing paper, or from credibly certified forests. And that then binds very nicely to, if we're now going to have a project to compensate for our CO2 emissions, rather than investing in some factory somewhere that might be doing something else, we then chose to invest in nature and invest in forests because it's such a priority for us.
We're talking about packaging. What about plastics?
Absolutely. Plastics is a huge topic at the moment. There are good bits with plastic and there are bad bits with plastic. And therefore, if you buy a beauty product in the retail store, you need to protect it in some way. It does need some form of packaging material. Otherwise, you will not be able to use it, or you will have to go to a place where you only dispense by hand into your own container. So packaging is essential, but how do we make sure that the packaging that we use on our product is as good as it can possibly be? So if you look at a packaging, you can make it more sustainable in many ways. Either you can do that by looking at the incoming materials. So you can, for example, choose to use renewable materials like either paper or board, like I was mentioning before, or bioplastics, for example. Or you can actually say, no, but we're going to be using recycled materials. And if you use recycled materials, even better to use post-consumer recycled materials, or PCR. So that means materials that we've taken from, that have already been used by consumers, they've been brought to recycle, and they've been recycled, and they're being used again. This is we're working in both of these areas. So we have a couple of products that are using bioplastics, but we're working a lot with using post-consumer recycled products. So the majority of our new products coming out on the markets at the moment, for example, our Love Nature range contains post-consumer recycled materials. So that's one of the key things we're doing. But then if you have, again, the packaging material, you can also do something at the end of life. So if I have a product, for example, what happens to it after use? And here we need to be working in a local situation with local authorities to make sure that the packaging that is used is recycled. But in order for it to be recycled, it needs to be recyclable. So how do we make sure that all our packaging materials are actually recyclable? So right now, my packaging team is working on a big project to make sure that all labels are easily taken off, so that the packaging material, for example, is easily recyclable. So we're changing all the glues and all the adhesives, putting on the labels. So we are working with both what materials we're putting in, and we've done a lot of change and reduced the amount of plastics we're using by a lot. We're working on the recycling, both in India, we're working with the authorities there, but in general, we're also working to make it recyclable. And then we're working to say, actually, do we need this much material? So where our products, every new project we're now going into is, can we make this in a different way? Can we reduce the amount of materials? Can we design this product to be more environmentally friendly? So we're working on all of these areas. But again, there is no silver bullet considering how cosmetics are sold at the moment. but I'm sure the world will change a lot in the next decade. So we can improve how we work today, but I think we also need to be open for the fact that I expect there to be some quite significant changes in how we buy and sell products in the next decade in order to tackle this issue, because it's a huge issue.
You mentioned you're working with the Indian authorities. Can you tell something of your presence in India, the kind of work that you're doing, the sustainability part in India that you're doing?
Okay, now I'm not the perfect person because I'm sitting here in my office in Sweden and I have a great Indian team, but I can tell you what I know, and hopefully I'll be saying the right things. Well, first of all, we've been in India for many, many years, 25 years at the moment, I believe. And we have 2 wonderful manufacturing facilities in India, of which our newest one is LEED certified. So it's super efficient with regards to energy, solar panels in the factory. We are reusing the water for irrigation purposes, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a super efficient, great factory. And then when it comes specifically to working with the authorities on sustainability issues and on the packaging waste side, I know we are doing that. I know we're currently in discussions with the authorities, but I don't know the exact details. But I know that my team in India are working very, very closely with the authorities, specifically on the packaging waste side, because I know that's a big topic in India at the moment, but also on many other topics.
You mentioned that we're going to do things very differently in the next decade.
Yes.
Yeah. So if I look back in the last decade, you have reduced your ecological footprint in a great way, in all aspects, in water, in carbon emissions, also in sourcing kind of thing. So tell us your plans, briefly kind of thing, the coming decades, if it's from 2020 to 2030, how you see things, and how after post-COVID world, or if there is a post-COVID world, how things are going to be different.
Well, we surely hope that there will be a post-COVID world. That's obvious. And I do believe a post-COVID world will be different. I think there will be increased focus on safety. I think there will be increased focus on sourcing. I think there will be increased focus on transparency in the supply chain. So all of those topics which have been on the agenda for a very long time, I believe, have been impacted a lot by the coronavirus situation and by COVID, and have been accelerated by those topics. I also think climate change is going to become more visible in everybody's day-to-day life. And I think that is going to lead to a lot of focus on everything we do that does impact the climate negatively. So I think this, again, the supply chains, how we structure ourselves, how we distribute our products will be a key focus. And then I do believe, as I was mentioning before, that packaging will change. I think there is a huge awareness of these topics that was not there 2 years ago. I've been working with sustainability issues in corporations for a long time, more than 2 decades. And usually I'm the one being the driver and everyone else is kind of trying to slow me down. And now I'm seeing the opposite, which is really, really interesting. I'm getting questions from all parts of the world that when I was talking to them 2 years ago, were not very interested in this topic at all, are starting to call me and say, what are we doing in this area? How can we do more? How can we support? And that's obviously not just my company. I think it's the world in general. So I think the fact that awareness has increased enormously in the past few years will make the consumer push even stronger, and will make, I expect there to be enormous change in how things are done in the next decade in this area.
Especially if I come to India. India is a very young country kind of thing. Mm. And a company like Oriflame has obviously depends on its consumers, its footfall numbers. So before I let you go, I would give you the floor to address our viewers, the youth on what you think the way forward. How should they choose their products? How can they make a difference?
Good question. I think it starts with asking questions and trying to understand, reading, learning, listening, and asking questions. So getting yourself educated. And I know that our team in India is trying to support with helping consumers be informed and make the right decisions. Because again, the more consumer push there is, the faster the change will go. Because even the people in the organization or in other parts of the world who are not spending a lot of time driving this, if the consumer is asking for it, it will wake up everyone, I believe. So I think that's asking questions is probably my key tip. Then there is a lot, to be fair, when we do life cycle assessments of our products, a large or a very significant part of the environmental impact is actually in the use phase. So when you take a shower, for example, it's how you heat the water and how long you stand in the shower that is by far the biggest impact on CO2 emissions versus everything else we do. You know, you can add the impact of sourcing raw materials and transporting and manufacturing and storing and everything else, and it's still very small compared to the amount of water you use in your shower. So thinking about their day-to-day lives, how they use our products, how much water they use, how much electricity they use, how many cotton balls they throw away, not using single-use plastics, choosing refillable or renewable materials where possible, etc. So taking those small decisions in their everyday life will make an impact in itself, and it will push companies like mine to change even faster as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Antonia. This has been a pleasure having you on Planet Outlook. I hope viewers will enjoy this session.
I will. It was a pleasure joining you, and my regards to all of India. And I hope very much that I'll be able to come there soon after this COVID situation, because it's such a wonderful country.
And stay safe, and maybe we'll see you in India very soon.
I hope so. Take care. Stay safe. Bye.